Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coaching to Flourish podcast. I'm your host, John Andrew Williams, and today I'm with Zeina, who was in my 2.0 class. So we've spent time together. Zeina, how are you? How are things?
Good. How are you? How's it been?
Busy, trying to navigate through this, time. There's Julian. You might see him in the
The background.
we have a little rose and lavender garden right here that I love, and its plants are like, I love plants, as you could probably see from this. But so how's life? How are things going? What's the update?
Well, with COVID, you know how things have been a bit crazy everywhere. So it's basically between working from home and right now we're back like 1 or 2 days in the office. So it's just a lot of projects going on, personal projects, and then my job too. So it's actually been quite a good and interesting time as well as difficult. It's kind of a mix, which is a bit weird to hear, but yeah, it's also been good to just calm down and, go through time of reflection kind of.
Right. And I mean, this is worldwide. Here I am in Portland and you're on the other side of the planet. I mean, this is wow. And so today, what we're going to do in this episode is I'd love to hear your story and get into your journey to coaching, through coaching, and then after coaching, and have some time, if there is time, for the audience to ask a couple questions too. And if those watching, if you want to put your questions in the Q&A, that would be fantastic. And then we'll have this episode available on the blog, and then we can keep going on this. And so Zeina works with young women as an academic. He went through the ALC program, the Academic Life Coaching Program, and then the 2.0 with me, and then now Andrew. And Andrew he's one of our trainers now too, here at Coach Training EDU. And he wants to say hi. And let's get into it. So where did you grow up? What was the influence, and how has it influenced you today?
Okay. So basically, I grew up in Lebanon, the country, because sometimes in the US people think it's the city, so it's the country. And I started I'm a civil engineer originally. So I was a civil engineer, and then I started working in construction. And one day, it's weird how things turn up, because I've always wanted to be a teacher, but I've always loved working with young people. But you kind of put it in the back and forget that this was part of the things that you wanted. And then one day I'm at work, and one of my coworkers goes into the office. So when you work in construction, it's a bit of a heavy job, so you kind of have to be strong, and it's not like an easy kind of thing. So he comes into my office and he makes this kind of joke about how usually in the morning they check how my mood is before they come in to talk to me. And I just stood there and I thought, wow, is that how I'm portraying myself now? Like, how did I reach this point? And then one of my friends says, there's this amazing training that I did on relational needs coaching. It was back in Lebanon. So maybe you should take it. It might benefit you as a person. So I went there and I started doing it. And somehow they loved me and I loved coaching. They wanted me to work with them too, with the youth. We did kind of camps for youth where we did that. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I need to do something about that. I want to be myself. So I went online, researched all of it, and then I found your program and I signed up for it. And I started going into it and just growing from there. So yeah, that was one moment that just kind of made me realize that change needed to come, and then I built up on it. And just to clear up, your program in the US was at 3 a.m. back in Lebanon on Mondays.
Remember that.
So I literally woke up every week at 3 a.m. to do that program. That's how much I wanted and needed that change.
I remember this now, as you're saying this is all flooding back, and you belong to an elite group of people who have taken this program, and we're talking fewer than a dozen people who have taken this program in the middle of their nights. I feel like we need to get that group of people together and have some sort of, I don't know if it needs to be a support, the post support, okay, to recover or to celebrate. And you're this elite group of Navy SEAL life coaches who are able to get up at 3 a.m. and still function. Because I remember we had overviews outside. We're like, John, listen, like, let's meet in the evening, or, like, so I can adjust the time. Right.
Yeah,
And
I remember that too.
yeah. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, you have energy. Like, that's cool. Like, here we are. So I'm impressed. I mean, 3 a.m. is, I mean, that's the thing. What's it, what, if any, like, what's the difference between the culture and the understanding around what life coaching is in Lebanon? Are you still in Lebanon, or
I live in Boston
right?
now.
You're in Boston.
I'm in Boston.
I didn't know you. When did you move to the US?
So I finished my master's in Belgium last year, and
Nice.
then I've been here for like 8 months now, 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know you were in Boston. You're in
Yeah.
Boston. So what's new? Like, is this your first time living in the US?
It's my first time living in the US. Yes.
What's different? Yeah. What are the biggest differences?
Here's the thing. So I moved Lebanon and then Belgium and then here. And you don't realize how that affects you and how it affects people around you until you're in it. There's a lot of, well, when it comes to the culture, it's very different because first of all, in Lebanon, everyone is very, the political and the situation in general makes you want to just kind of cocoon around each other. So everyone is into belonging and like kind of helping and being there for each other. And you come here, people are still very supportive here, but it's kind of a different way of doing it. So you have more kind of autonomy here, like people interfere if you ask them to, they're there if you ask them to. Over there, it feels like everyone is family-wise. So I always used to joke. So if one day, like, I don't know, you have a flat tire, you can call someone, like for 2 days and they come and save you. So it's just kind of these little things that change. When it comes to coaching, it's weirdly speaking, we're one of the countries that started accepting coaching. So there's a lot of coaches back in Lebanon right now. It's kind of a booming industry. They look at it differently because mental health is not as accepted as it is here in the US. So here people work on their mental health. In Lebanon, it's kind of a group of people who've accepted it and are working on it. So it's less common for people to kind of look at it that way, to be kind of into it that way.
Right. Wow. So, and in Belgium too, what did you notice about coaching in Belgium, or what's the, yeah.
They don't really, here's the thing, it's not that big. They don't really have a lot of, it's pretty small there. For them, it's not really a concept well known. They just do, for example, peer coaching within a company, which is not, like, it's not official professional coaching. It's more like people who work together helping each other. So it was very shocking for me. Like, I would tell them coaching and they just ask me, like, what is that and how does it work? So it felt weird.
Right. We've trained so many more people in the Middle East compared to Europe. And I was in Switzerland just last May, a year ago, and it was relatively new. And I was surprised. It felt even behind, speaking at the conference in 2014 in Dubai, that was 6 years ago now. Like, Switzerland's barely getting there. And that's amazing to me, like, to see coaching, like, where it picks up and how the cultural influences of it. Where do you see, this, like, where do you see coaching going? Like, if you were to look into the different cultures and think 10 years from now, like, what's your sense of where the profession's heading?
I think it's one of those industries that's going to be booming. It's going somewhere good. And the good thing about it is that right now it's also booming online. So it's one of those industries that kind of works anywhere. You don't have to be in person, but you can be. So I work with people in Australia. Like, I've had coaches who are in Australia, and now I'm peer coaching with a coach who's in Bulgaria. So it just feels like it's so international that it's easy to spread on a first thing. And second of all, people are starting to realize that there are things that about our wellness, about how we take care of ourselves, about how we present ourselves that really affects every aspect of us. So they're starting to realize that we do need that. We do want to grow. We don't just want to pass and survive through life. I always like to use that word. We want to be present. We want to enjoy it to as much as we can. And I think coaching is what makes that possible.
That's well said. What was your favorite concept in either the 1.0 or 2.0?
Oh, that one is a good story. So the pause. I so remember that one. It was a chapter in the 2.0, the pause. And funny speaking is that 3 days later, I had a coaching session with you where you had to listen in. on something that I recorded. And right, and I remember the moment so well. It's very nice. So you were driving, even like you had something to be, and you just like at one point you're like, okay, pause it here. And I knew why you said that because we just went through the pause, and you're like, what's going on here? And I knew like what's going on with you. I was being impatient and kind of rushing with the client. And I just knew in that moment how much impatience in my own life, in my personal life, was affecting my own coaching experience with the coachee. So I just stood there and I knew that that concept was just gonna stay with me, whether in my personal life, whether in my coaching, whether in anything. Always take a pause. Like silence is sound may sound weird, but it's the moment where everything happens. The thinking, the solutions, all of it. It was just kind of an aha moment for me that I just carry with me all the time about just pausing.
It's amazing to me how the journey of becoming a better coach often parallels personal development at the same time. Like there's a very clear parallel, which is really exciting because if you want to grow as a person, here is a program that you can take, like to be a better coach, you have to be a better person in the sense of managing your mental, emotional place and your state. Wow. So where else? So when you pause right now, so if we paused and took a bird's eye view of your life, what comes up?
I like that question. Feels like here's the thing. You know what really comes up is how much we forget to do that. Because we get to a point, I've noticed most people get to a point where they constantly want to grow. So we want to be better people. We want to do everything. And then, as like right now in COVID, why I was saying it's a growing opportunity, because I get to do that. I get to do the bird's eye view on my life and realize how much I actually have achieved. You forget to be grateful for these things. And moments like that help you do that, help you slow down in order to come up with better things you wouldn't have come up with if you just rushing into growth, just like putting a line in front of you and walking through it.
I'm pausing right now, just letting it sink in.
Yeah, I love the pause now.
I love pausing. It's so nice. I mean, it's a good reminder. I was once talking to it was someone whose dad was a coach. And he was laughing because he was thinking about signing up for the program. And I was talking with him and he was laughing. And I asked him, what are you laughing about? Like, we were having this 20-minute conversation. He just started breaking out laughing. And he said, you're doing it. You're doing the coachy thing where you're just pausing and just sitting there. And I was just being, just thinking. And he said, my dad does the same thing. And he's a coach at this level. And if you listen to a lot of coaching, I think you could probably run an algorithm that a computer could listen to it and judge how much effort or like what the length of pause is exactly equivalent to the experience of the coach. Wow. One-to-one correlation. I believe it. I totally believe it. All right. So how's the practice now? Like what are you, like, who do you work with?
So since I moved, it's been a bit of a challenge because, you have to go into a new clientele, a new world. So right now I'm working like setting up, I already set up my website and I have a blog that I write constantly on. And I'm working on getting new clients in the US. Basically, it was back in Lebanon when I was working with the company I was training with. It was last summer. We do kind of so camps for youth where you just go like 5 days and you do all the experience that we do in these 5 days. That's something that I love doing, and it gives such an amazing feeling for us and for the youth, how much change that happens in there. And so that's it, basically, working on my blog, getting new clients here. And the reason it recently came to my mind, I was working on resilience basically. And then the reason it came to my mind to work with women is that I've realized how much we set one kind of, like, you have to have one personality that evolves around everything, especially in young women. Like, I'm going to be that. And I realized from my experience that you can be 100 things, not even as you're moving in time, as you're in the same space. You can be in one space the funny one, you can be the dancer, you can be the project manager, as I am in construction, you can be the coach. So that kind of diversity doesn't, people don't think about it, and especially young women, they think they have to make one decision. And that's basically what I'm trying to convey and trying to support with and kind of inspire.
Oh, that is so, so ridiculously cool. What do you, so as a movement, right? If you had this message, you can be more than one thing. What do you think stands in the way of young women today in adopting that, embracing it?
A lot of it is also the current situation. So if you look around you, it's not really a big message. It's not really existence. Like, everyone grows up thinking, when you ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like they always feel they have to answer one thing, like a doctor or I don't know, like whatever they want to answer, they just give you one answer. And it kind of sets, like, we don't realize these things, but if you think about it layer after layer, what if they want to be a doctor who's a coach who goes out and plays basketball? And it could be so many things. And maybe when they're 30 they don't want to do they don't want to be a doctor anymore, they want to do something else. So we kind of set it up and we forget that this is an option. And we forget that we can, like, from inside the strength, we think that we won't be able to do it or we won't make it. But technically, if we take it step by step, we can.
It's amazing how these seemingly innocuous questions can be so like assumption dumping. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how, like, what did you learn at school today? Like, you only learn things at school is the assumption that goes around that question, right? Or what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, we are our profession. That's so like 1800s, it's so.
And we don't notice that. I haven't noticed that. I was just thinking about it the other day and it just came up. Wow, we do it. I do it sometimes when I see someone's kid.
Yeah, I want to be a blacksmith. Oh, okay, great. Cool. Let's do that. Make some bayonets, With all right, Zeina, what's the most surprising thing that from the coach training? What was the thing that surprised you the most about your coach training program?
I think how much you learn when you're coaching others during the training. It's not just, it's very easy to get the tools. We have the book, so you can read the tools, go through them, listen to whatever, a YouTube tutorial or anything. You can just like listen to other people, but just being in that moment and connecting with different types of people, because in each session you might be working with someone who's different personality, different background, different country sometimes. And that is the real thing that makes you a better coach, and that makes up the real value of the training.
Yeah, that was the most surprising thing was similar, was the level of connection that develops between a class was surprising. And now it's, looking back, that should have been an obvious thing, but it wasn't, like when we first started. I think it's part of it is because it's almost like a reverse neighbor. I mean, I use this example a lot. You know someone's perspectives, their core motivation, but you don't know if they have a dog or cat.
It's true.
Like opposite of neighbor. Okay, so in your practice, so your blog and your website, we'll put them on the Coach Training EDU blog. We'll have links there. So if you want to find out more about Zeina, go there. Like that's the spot. If you're listening to this, go there. Let's see if there are any questions in the Q&A yet. We have a number of people live too. Thank you for listening live on Facebook as well. Let's say hi to all the people on Facebook. Say hi to all the people watching this. We're getting a little traction. It's fun. Like this blog the podcast is actually, it's getting some legs. And part of it, people love to hear the story of where, of just, just people's story. When you first heard about coaching, honest first reaction when you first heard the words life coach.
Yeah, it was not a positive one. It was like, what are you gonna are you gonna tell me how to live what are you trying to do? Teach me how to live, make me feel things? Like, I don't want to go into that route. What am I gonna be doing if I do that? It was scary because you think that someone's gonna find out things about you. Like you're gonna find out things about you you might not want to. So you're like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to stay here in my space where everything's happy and gloomy. And
that was my reaction too. I thought it was a joke at first. It's like, really? No, that's silly. That's awesome though. So what was the journey from that to, you know what, I want to sign up for a program? Like when did the key flip?
So I started taking the training. I went there as a participant where they coach you. I didn't even know what was happening. I went in there. There's like people sitting there, and then they start asking you like personal questions, and you have to share them with. It was a weird.
You just arrived at a thing like, I'm going to try this out.
Yeah, and I do that a lot. Like I like to try new things out of nowhere, but it felt weird at first. I was like, what is going on here? And then when they told me about the camp, because I was a scout, so I have camping experience, and they loved kind of how I did things, or at least they thought I'd be a good coach. So I started training with them, and we went to that camp. And I remember the fourth day, I was working with one of the kids, and they left, and we were left 4 coaches together. And then I started literally crying, like I was in tears. And I thought I was dealing with kids who had limiting beliefs about themselves. Like it's a 15, 16-year-old people who have thoughts about themselves, like who think things that where you're like looking at that, and I don't want that. I don't want a kid to do that when I can do something about it. I don't want an adult to have that if I can just simply ask them the right question where they can find the answer that just makes sense to them and changes that look they have.
That's so right on. I mean, I can feel the tingles of getting, like, there is a whole generation of students who need, like, it's the need of coaching is larger now than ever before in terms of helping them to adapt to the work environment and the world environment that they're going to have to interact with. It's real.
Very true.
When did you first know for sure that you were listening level 2 or empathetic listening? Like, what was that moment when you knew, yes, I've got it?
When I was able to do it with myself. When you're in that meditation mode, like when you take a moment to just meditate and you're able to be outside of your emotion. That's something that I always like to, when I'm coaching, I always use that method. Simply just being able to meditate where I'm not my emotion, I'm just looking at it and kind of understanding it. So the moment I started to be able to do it to myself, it felt like now when I'm in a coaching situation, I realized that I started to be able to do it with other people. Because it was no longer about being in that state of automatic thoughts. It was just being present with me and with others.
Oh, that's so brilliant. Thank you for that insight. That's a really cool insight of the connection between mindfulness and empathetic self-listening. Yeah, that's all right. So we have our first question from our live audience. What tips do you have for working with youth ages 12 to 17?
Listen beyond just what you're hearing. Because in that age, they give you so much. They tell you through their movement, they assume things. So when they're talking, sometimes they're like, you're going to punish. We had one kid in the camp who used to say, you're going to punish me. Like if he'd do things to check if we were going to punish him. So he was telling us that he wants us to understand him better. So when you listen to how they're talking, how they're moving. So actually the first thing is just really listen and let them know that they're listened to. with eye contact, with just all the attention that they would need in order to feel like they're understood and someone is there for them.
Yeah, I think young people are afraid that you're listening to them to gather information, and then you're going to judge the information and judge them based on what they say. They're just simply not used to people listening empathetically like this to them.
Very true.
I find there's usually around a 10 or 15 minute, I don't know what the word would be, trial session, or, you know what I mean? Like trial time, where they're just like, they're testing out. And then this is why, I mean, they're testing out. Are you going to be cool and not judge me? Or are you going to get into it? You know, are you going to tell me things? And that's where a lot of the academic life coaching programs designed is to help avoid that. You know, just like, hey, here's an exercise. Let's dive into this exercise. You break through the 10 to 15 minute trial period. But then it's to connect with youth the same way you would connect to an adult. And it's surprising, like young people can handle really sophisticated questions. The same kind of sophisticated questions that adults can do if the context is in place. And I feel like that's the key to working with youth is to like understand that if the context is set in place, then you're just really working with a person. But you can't just jump in with no context. That seems to be the trick of it.
That's true too, because having a workbook always helps, like having tools always helps.
Helps avoid those awkward turtle moments.
Yeah.
Like there's good pausing and there's bad pausing. Like, you know, it helps avoid the bad, like, what are we doing? I don't know.
Why are we here?
Yeah. I'm feeling judged right now. This is negative and I'm feeling judged and no one's talking, which is like the worst. All right. So, how can the community support you? Like, what would be the gift, or what's the ask, or, you know, what workshop coming up? This is your ideal client you're looking to work with. How can the Coach Training EDU community best support you? I think my internet's getting.
I think having this interview done has been like, seemed like a great opportunity to me, like being listened to. Just the fact that I get to be seen and heard, I think that just like gives such a great opportunity, like being part of the blog, being part of the community, having all that makes a big difference. That's a great place to start when it comes to these things, and I really appreciate that. I'm grateful for all the work that you're doing.
I appreciate it, Zeina. Like it's one of the, you know, there's such brilliance in the way that you coach, and it is a pleasure to have, like, you know, a place to showcase that. And no, I'm just psyched. I'm really thankful for you to hop in this call and be a part of this Coaching to Flourish podcast. And congrats on the move from, you know, to Boston and you know, from Belgium, because I know, you know, we connected, we talked about what that might look like in the program that you took and all of that. Like, seriously, congrats on all of this. And to find out more, you can go to the coachtrainingedu.com/blog, and you'll see Zeina's post there. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next Tuesday, and we'll keep up our blog, our live, you know, interview that we've then turned into a podcast. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.